is Ray Catterley, and I'm being joined by Melissa Nelson with South Bend Industrial Hemp. And then this is targeted for the audience of you, the architecture or design professional, as well as the building professionals, and those of you who may be considering building your own home, but you found your way onto this professional engagement type of interaction to where the professionals that are making their way into this space or the practitioners need to connect with the supply side chain and make sure that that comes to the project where the project is successful and doesn't have those supply challenges. And so with that in mind, we have Melissa coming on. Melissa, why don't you give a real brief introduction of yourself and your operation, and then we'll dig into that a little bit more. I like to describe the hemp processor as the sawmill equivalent to the lumber industry. And I like to describe hemp as though we just discovered trees. And so now we're figuring out things to make with it. And why don't you give a brief introduction and tell us about where y'all are, what you're doing, and some of the things that are immediate on your agenda as y'all are engaging with the professional builders.
All right. So, a brief introduction about myself. My name is Melissa Nelson. I am a crop research scientist. I think that's important to understand my background because it plays a pivotal point in my tasks and my responsibilities within our companies. So, my primary or where I started was Performance Crop Research. It's an independent research company. So, we companies bring products to down their developmental pipeline and ultimately to the market or to be submitted to the EPA for commercial approval. My husband and my brother-in-law are third generation or fourth generation farmers here in Great Bend, Kansas, and they were looking to diversify their farming operation and looked into industrial hemp for fiber production. We really believed that's where Kansas could thrive in terms of large scale agriculture, and we were always very interested in the industrial side of things. As we continued down that journey, started producing more and more tons of material, we found that there was an immediate need for more processors within the area or within the Midwest in general. And so we went ahead and opened a processing facility. And so we were one of the first in the Midwest operating at a commercial capacity. And we now supply builders all over the country, all the way from Hawaii up to Maine. And really are a pivotal piece in the growing industry in terms of setting standards and supplying producers or supplying builders with product.
And anybody that follows you guys on social media knows that you guys are leaders in this space. You share quite often about how things are made, the good days and the bad days, when the rain is falling, when the sunshine is out there. And I really have enjoyed, as somebody in this space on the more built side of the whole supply chain, I enjoy learning about how it actually takes place from all the way to the seed to the soil and through the processing. Why don't you start with that on how y'all got into this in the first place and how y'all first discovered hemp? I know as far as like in any farming agribusiness enterprise, there's crops that come into rotation. There's decisions that you make based on what the soil and the almanac is saying to you. Tell us how your origin story is, and then we'll plug that into the rest of the supply chain and how that's translates into this being something that's a very possible viability that is feasible to building professionals. So where did it all begin?
It began back in 2018. If you are outside of the agricultural industry, we do not set our own prices for corn, soybeans, milo, winter wheat, which are the primary crops that we grow here in Kansas. And markets were getting tough. So the commodity price was down, input prices were up. So we were looking for a way to diversify our operation with a different commodity or a different crop. Kansas became online in 2019 to be able to grow. So back in 2018, when they said that they were going to roll this out, we started looking into the nuts and bolts of it. You know, how do we grow this crop? What is going to take to be successful? What are our break evens, etc. We were really one of the first in Kansas and really one of the only ones really throughout the Midwest back in 2019 that was fiber focused. There was some interest in Colorado and things like that, but in terms of fiber focus, there wasn't a lot of resources. So we really leaned on the guys's, large scale agricultural background, generational knowledge that they've obtained with working with their dad and things like that. And then my data background and my research background, and really being able to make the most of every season. So within our operation, we have done over 30 different varieties from all around the world. We started looking at what works well, different planting depths, different planting densities, etc., and really became very successful. The first year was a big learning year. The second year, we had a very successful crop, and that's when we started picking up a lot of traction nationally and internationally for how we were growing. We had farmers coming to us saying, hey, we want different options and for our farm and a different way, a different income source. And we had manufacturers calling us saying, what processor are you taking this to? We want to purchase that and get this in our products, whether it be bioplastics or insulation or animal bedding, the different products for that. And we thought we had our crop sold, thought we did everything quote unquote right with contracts and things like that. And our processor backed out on us and said that they didn't get the funding to move forward with their processing facility. We were really at a junction there. And so we needed to get out of the industry because we now had a crop we couldn't sell, which makes doing business extremely challenging, and farming is a business. Or we could go down the path and open our own processing facility, which is what we did. And so within that time, we've opened our own processing facility. We now have dozens of farmers that grow for us in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. Sometimes we get some Nebraska growers and some Missouri growers. We don't have any from those states in 2025. And we were able to really expand and allow different operations to come in. Within that time, we've also been able to help manufacturers really hone in on what works well for their manufacturing lines or their building lines, or really what standards the industry needs to set in order for them to have consistent product. So we really preach a seed to final sale approach. We understand that the material coming into our processing facility, ultimately, it starts with the farmer and how they put it in the ground. So we supply the variety to them. That way, we're ensuring that we're getting consistent variety results. We tell them what planting density we need it at. So then again, the size, the quality of material, when they harvest, etc., consistency. We want, as a builder, when you purchase bag 1 or bag 100, that product is going to be exactly the same for you. Specs and consistency are extremely critical. So within that time at the processing facility, we have started a certified apprenticeship program through the Kansas Department of Commerce and then Kansas Farm Bureau. And so again, ultimately investing in our workforce, we want our staff to understand the process really start to finish and allow us to expand and grow within the processing facility. So as a builder, we then, or as a processor at the end, before that product ever goes to you, we will sample based upon batches, based upon farmers that are bringing in their product, because we want to know that the cellulose content, the dust content, our fiber, or any foreign materials, the product that you're getting as a builder is going to be consistent, whether bag 1 or bag 1,000.
Right. And anybody who comes into contact with you is just based on your introduction alone is going to associate the word leader or leadership with you and your company and how you do it. And then I've heard hemp described at, anybody in the hemp industry, I've heard, there's the leading edge and then there's the bleeding edge. And I definitely think many of us have gotten the cuts along the way from being on the bleeding edge. And I know many certainly have. And you talked a little bit about standards and specifications. We'll get to that in a minute. But on that leadership side, one of the things that any leader does is you begin with the end in mind. And so you mentioned about knowing what that product is going to go for. Is it going to go for textiles? Is it going to go for nonwovens? Is it going to go for plastics? Is it going to go for a grain or food crop? Or is it going to go for building materials? And then y'all were growing for a specific end in mind. If you want to touch on two things about that whole process of beginning with the end in mind, and then I think something that's really important for anybody who's a design professional in the building space is to know how that goes all the way back to the farmer, so that we get to know the supply chain and know that it's going to be there for us when we need it. So if you'll talk about the farmer relationships and how y'all lead that based on beginning with the end in mind.
Of course. So when we say we're beginning with the end in mind or seed to final sale, we have created this growers group. And so our processing facility only purchases product from our farmers. Okay. And so again, we've laid the foundation with the data-driven approach. We have diversified. So, not all of our farmers in one area. So Mother Nature and the challenges that she brings with farming, et cetera. If one farmer gets decimated with hail, that's not going to ruin our entire crop. We have for 2026 projected 12,000 acres across our area, and which is a pretty substantial growth for our processing facility and what we're doing here. We hope with educational events like this, we continue to gain more and more growers and builders and the demand, et cetera. But when I say start with the end in mind, as a builder, you are going to be primarily focused on the herd potentially. And so 95% of our contracts that leave our processing facility are herd focused contracts. And so when we ask our farmers to plant their crop, we are asking them to plant at a density that is going to give us a higher herd to fiber ratio. Okay. Herd is the inside woody substance of the plant. The bast fiber is the outside green material that you would typically associate with textiles. We want to maximize that plant. So just for rough numbers, if a 1,000-pound bale comes into us, because it comes in a bale, that's how we receive it, 65% of that, if it's grown correctly, is going to be herd focused. Okay. 65% of that bale, so 650 pounds, is going to be able to be produced for herd. As it goes through our machine, it sizes, sorts it, separates it from the bast fiber. And within that 65% of the usable herd, about 45% of that is going to be considered building grade fiber. Because ultimately we have to go through, and every processor is different, but for ours, it will go through an extra step within the line to make sure that every piece that you're getting is a consistent width and has that 99% dust and fiber free characteristics or qualities. And so that, again, you have to work backwards. So as these contracts are coming in for 2026 for builders, we know we need to put approximately, X amount of acres in the ground in order to fulfill those contracts. So what I do as the person that focuses more on the agronomic practices, I look at our manufacturing contracts and I say, this is the capacity of our machine and what we can run per shift per day. And then I will scale that backwards and say we need X amount of acres to ensure that we have enough product that we're running 365 days a year. Did that answer your question, Ray? Or did that get
Oh
too
yeah.
in the weeds?
And then, the thing that I like to point out is like what builder, architect, subcontractor, or supplier, whether it's the local lumberyard or whatnot, would ever make contact with the sawmill, let alone the forestry professional. And so right now, one of the things that I like to make people keenly aware of is like, if you're going to come into this space, you don't need to necessarily get deep in the weeds as far as everything that we're going to talk about here, but you need to know that there's people who are, and you need to know how to engage them. And then if you are looking at a development, and we get the phone calls all the time about, hey, I want to build 20 houses here, 100 houses here. You've been on those phone calls with me. And then we're consulting with them, and it's like, well, if you want to do that, well, we're going to need this much time to contract this many acres, and those are growth cycles that are a year in advance. And as developers are looking at this, they're going to need to be aware of that. As builders are looking at this, they're going to need to be aware of that. And then they're going to need to make sure that things are quality and done by quality control operations, to where in lumber, those things are already set and those standards are in place.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm going to interrupt you really quick.
Mhm.
It's grown quite a bit. When we first started taking contracts in 2021, it truly was, we were processing just to keep up. And so if you put in a 50-ton order, we'd be like, we need X amount of weeks to make that happen because we did not have any in stock. The industry has grown, and the capacity has grown, and processors that are serious within the space have figured out a way to ramp up and meet that demand. So, as a builder listening to this, don't get too nervous or apprehensive or shy away because you might think, oh, I'm not thinking far enough ahead. Stockpiles are building up. We are getting more efficient. That lead time is getting reduced, but it is different than if you're going to go to the lumber yard and say, I need X amount of, I don't even know what you call it, pallets or like binds of timber. It is a little bit different than that.
Yeah, and that's due in large part to the processors like yourself collaborating with other processors about how to put a consistent product out there. And then I've been very encouraged seeing the interaction with many of the processors that have come on, faced some struggles, shared those struggles and successes with one another, and are now creating a supply chain. That's the word supply chain, or a phrase, is a buzzword in recent years through pandemics and import export. And I know many of or all of the first homes that were built in the U.S. were importing that herd. And then even just recently, I say firmly to people, is like, we don't have to import herd anymore. It's here. It's predictable. It's known, and you don't have to worry about it. And you can check that checkbox. And so, yeah, and that's due in large part to all that collaboration that's going on. Are are there anything that you want to share on that regard, as far as what you've seen the others on the farmer and processor community in engaging, that would be relevant to the design or the builder side of things?
I think one thing that is extremely unique about the hemp industry at this time is the more collaborative effort. It's not so much a competition yet, because we understand, and I use this phrase quite a bit, rising tide lifts all boats. There are processors that are better at micronized hemp than what our facility can produce. And so instead of us trying to hit this niche market that another processor is already very well equipped and can do so quicker, I'm going to refer that client over to a different processor that can meet their needs faster and more probably cheaper, just because of the setup and the way their machines are tailored. In saying that, these these other processors that maybe aren't set up for building great herd quite like we are going to refer them my way. And so it's a really unique industry in terms of collaboration, competition, and how we understand as processors that in order to fulfill these very, very large contracts, we truly do have to work together to meet the customer's demands.
Yeah, and I've been on job sites where, builders have been learning and discovering, and they've bought material from several different processors. And then there's the processors on the actual job site. And it's like, yeah, this is from here, this is from here, this is from here. And you can look at it. And then a phrase was coined, a co-opetition instead of competition. And then that collaboration is definitely taking place. And it's something that design professionals like architects, builders that need supplies predictably, they need to know that the industry is there for them. And then I appreciate those narratives and stories. We can get into, as we've talked a little bit about the farmer side and the supply side and how that takes place, and how, normally if you needed lumber, you go out to that section of the forest, or there's managed crops that take 20, 30 years to bring to fruition, or you're cutting any type of original growth or something like that. And then that is a very long cycle, where in America we've got a large agricultural base that can grow this crop once, maybe twice a year in those seasons. And then it's a lot more predictable. But talk a little bit about when your product goes out the door, how y'all go about that consistency. And then I'll let you unpack that in how you would like. I know there's sieve analysis tests that are going on. I've worked with your product and I love it. And how do you get it to where it like that?
Well, you're kind of asking, I mean, interesting.
Without
Yes, I know.
secret sauce or how it's done,
I'm
but
like,
just,
you
I
want the
guess,
secret
basically
sauce?
to know that it can be done predictably, and
Yes.
then, there's methods to it, I guess, is what I want professionals to know about, and then whatever you wanna shed light on that, kinda open it up to you to paint that how you see fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, every processor is going to have a little bit of a different process, but we have different metrics that our facility manager we communicate regularly, and he has very clear expectations of the type of product that we want leaving our facility. And thankfully, with the apprenticeship program and the development, because there wasn't processors, we truly built this from the ground up, and he was with us every step of the way. And thankfully, for builders like you, the feedback that we've gotten over the years on, we need this, we would appreciate this, we would prefer this, we have now developed this product that is our bread and butter. And so we have different ways that we can weigh the bags, and we can tell if there's any foreign materials, besides sending off lab tests, et cetera, but visually, and then quantitatively through weights, and different metrics within our sorting system. We can see if the fiber is too high and different processes need to be ran. But again, it all comes back to what our farmers are doing and the quality of product that they're bringing into us. It makes our job really easy at the processing facility. There are other processors that have much more intricate machines than we do, which is very cool. And we love seeing success within the industry. But for our processing facility, it's third-party lab testing, it's visual assessments, and then we can do different weight metrics to ensure that the product is what we say it needs to be.
When you have that engagement with your ideal first-time home builder, or a home builder that, maybe a career builder or an architect that's a career designer, and then they're wanting to utilize your material, walk us through that ideal engagement from, hi, this is who I am. I don't know anything. I know one of the big roles that you play is an educator. And how would that ideal engagement take place to where people can use that as a roadmap to reaching out to suppliers like yourselves?
Sure. One thing that's pretty unique about South Bend Industrial Hemp is we are a certified agritourism business through the state of Kansas. And so we do over 100 tours a year of our processing facility and of our farming operation. So if you are an architect that really wants to understand the nuts and bolts of how your product is coming to you, like, schedule a tour. We would love to talk to you. If not, we can do meetings like this, very informal over Zoom, etc. One thing that's very important to us is that we are following our product. So as a product comes into our processing facility, it is tagged with the farmer and the field that it's coming from. One, again, it just helps with consistency, batch to batch, etc. Quality of material coming in, what worked, what didn't. But as a builder, you can also get that information. So if you are a builder that the story, romanticizing the build, some people, that's really important, that the clients want to track how their home is being built and where those products are being sourced from. We can provide all of that information. If you are just looking for bulk material, we're happy to accommodate that as well. But that's kind of the best way, is just start asking questions. We can send you samples. We can connect you with other builders that have, some experience that can kind of guide you in the process. But in terms of raw material, just give us a call and we can start talking about product and what you need to be successful.
Yeah, I don't even know if I knew that y'all were doing that type of tracking all the way back to the manifesting, from the farm gate to your processing all the way through. I'm more brutally pragmatic, and it's like, is it dusty or not? And then I do
Right.
know that when the design professionals go into like government jobs and larger corporate commercial things where that is significant of like what were the agricultural practices, and then that's going to be important. And so y'all are already setting that up in place to where if you say if you're applying for a certification and you need to make a claim about it being the environmental impact and the good ag practices and those things, then you, as a supplier, you're providing that already. And then as the industry matures more, then that's already in place. And then those things are going to come with that. And then have you talked with any folks that are wanting to put that type of product that are seeking that, or is that just something y'all are doing internally?
We started doing it internally just as a quality assurance or a QC as it was going through. But then, oh gosh, what year was it? 2022. I believe the Biden administration came out with a lot of these green deals and carbon neutral, showing that you were reducing your carbon emissions, et cetera, was very interesting to builders or even homeowners that were showing that wanted to show that they were carbon negative, which agriculture is very carbon negative. And so that's started tagging it for QC, and then we were able to utilize that practice and tap into some of these builders that wanted to use it for grants and funding for a more carbon negative approach.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in the industry to provide the support in that claim. I know at some of the conferences that we go to that are more in the commercial focus, that is one of those things that is very important is when they're filling out their spreadsheet and they need to make claims, then they need to be able to back that claim up. And so the industry, I think one of the main things to know is that there's already professionals like South Bend that are doing that and paving that way to where that's possible. And so good on
Oh,
you
and
for
ask
that.
questions. I mean, not every processor does this. And what we've learned through this process is, up until recently, the U.S. Hemp Build Association, they got hemp herd into, the building codes and things like that. Like, it's not like lumber. There is not standards that these processors has to hit. So, ask for samples, ask questions, ask if they're doing those tracking, because you don't have to do it. We just do it because I'm like to set the standard here. And as being one of the first processors on the market, one of the first feedbacks that we got when we started sending out material, it was like, this isn't like the European material. And that was an important pivot for us because it was, okay, we can change the way we're growing, we can change the way we're processing and become like the American product, or we can stand proudly and say, this is the American product. This is our standard in which we're setting. And this is what you can get when you purchase from South Bend Industrial Hemp in Kansas. And so that's the way we chose to go. And we've just continued trying to raise the bar over the years.
Yeah, that's a very good point because there aren't any industry wide. And so
Mhm.
if you're an architect listening to this and then you need to jump through that hula hoop to accomplish a certification, you're going to need to be at the processor level and the supply chain level on that type of task. And then the industry is moving in the direction to where there is a specific task. We can talk a little bit about that because you mentioned the trade association and how they've got a sieve analysis test that is basically a measurement method on how to you know articulate, hey, yes, this has so much of this size and so much of this size, and it's a quantitative measurement tool. Are y'all using that sieve analysis or in any way, or is it because it still hasn't been published on through the balloting process with ASTM? I didn't know if y'all were incorporating anything like that before it goes out the door.
We have incorporated that, but we don't generally. We just have a third party lab that we use, and we just are consistently using that one lab. I think one thing that's important as a builder, as you're receiving these, every time, like I'm going to use ag as an example, because again, that's very much my background. If I send tissue samples to 3 different labs, they're going to have 3 different methods of extracting those nutrients from the leaf. And so your results are going to be slightly different. And so as you're using different metrics, or for the processor for us, we just want to make sure that we're consistently going to the same labs to get that data That way, over time, we're building a database that is really conducive for the data that we're collecting. So I cannot wait until that is published and more mainstream, and maybe we switch over and we start doing all of our batch testing through that. But right now, we just use a third-party lab.
Yeah, and then to emphasize, you guys again, that third party laboratory verification is above and beyond. And I just want people to know how much y'all are going through the extra steps to go above and beyond. And then that sieve analysis test, in its design on purpose was very simple. And
Mhm.
so it's very common lab equipment that you can buy, both at the processor side and also at the job site, then the supply side. So when shipments are coming in, it would be very conceivable for an architect to specify a certain sieve analysis quantitative result, and then that builder or that supplier can receive that truckload. And before you even unload it, you can run that really quick, and it's a low cost. It gets you close enough to know most of the qualitative important parts to that mix. And then you've got suppliers like yourselves that are going all the way to the extra extent to put it into an actual laboratory. And then so those different types of methods can work hand in glove with one another and complement one another. But the thing that I want to point out to the professionals that would either have to receive or reject any type of supply, shop your suppliers and know what they're doing to meet that, and then also know how to trust but verify, because things happen. You could have the load that's supposed to go out for an absorbency application, and then it gets mixed up at the loading dock, and then things like that happen. So the role of the architect often is quality control and assurance on these builds, and that's one of the tools that's going to be in their toolbox. And the suppliers are not only inventing those tools, but helping supply them with those tools to where everybody can keep track of things along the way.
Which is kind of, I mean, we having built this industry, we work so closely with other people within the industries because, for example, like the insurance agents, there was no insurance policies for industrial hemp processors. Um, and so for me, I walk around as someone, how do we protect ourselves? How do I make sure an architect or a builder doesn't get our product and maybe they didn't build their wall correctly and it cracks or, falls over or, something happens? How do I protect South Bend and say, no, we sent you consistent product. We sent the standard in which we, you know, have all these labs for, et cetera. So I'm always thinking in terms of how do we protect ourselves? And ultimately that gives us a higher level product for you to build with.
Unpack that a little bit more, because the insurability is one of the topics that's of a routine discussion. And I like the fact that you protecting yourself also protects the other professionals in the space. And then at some point, projects are going to go south. It happens. And so when it does happen, what needs to take place is you supplied everything to the best of your ability with these specifications. You can verify it. The builder did their things in the best of their ability and they can verify it. And then just happened. And then there's a very simple insurance claim instead of everybody suing everybody and everybody going out of business and stuff like that. And so I think that can you unpack that a little bit more with some narrative on how you did that and what that means to y'all currently right now, and especially how that would translate to the professionals using the product?
Of course. I mean, you're working with people. And you're working with man-made creations, not just herd in general, but homes, et cetera. There's a lot of fingers in this pie that are helping people build a home in which they're going to live in. And it's the same way we approach our workplace. Are we ensuring it's a safe workplace? Are we, reducing risks? Are we making sure that this is a longevity, decision that we're making? And so I just want to make sure that I'm doing my part, that if a person is in this home, has their family, has their kids, has their pets, has everything that is so important to them, are we doing what we need to do to ensure that they're getting the best quality of product? That was where my mind went. It's the same way we approach every area of our businesses and all of our businesses. Um, and, we've talked to our insurance agent as someone, we're hoping to get more hemp builds, et cetera, and work with more builders. And he's with American National. We're also very close with Farm Bureau, American Family. We're talking to all those agents and we're saying, what do you need to feel good as an agent or feel good as a business insuring homes that are built like this? And so that's some of the feedback that we've gotten, and to help them feel good about moving forward with insuring homes like this.
Yeah, the facts of that the conversation is even taking place are very significant because what I do know is there's a lot of you mentioned the romance of this about I've talked to a lot of people who want to grow their own home. They want to plant it out there, then they want that hemp to come in, and then that hemp will be used in their home. And I was like, add 3 to 10 years to your project and several hundred thousand, if not a few $1,000,000 to that process. And if you're okay with that, well, then great. I can plug you in with everything that you'll need. And so the romance and the common sense application can go together, but they sometimes need to negotiate that. So, is there anything else as far as what they said were significant key points on the build side? For that, like I know they probably gave you some hula hoops to jump through. Did they give any parameters and specifications for the builder to jump through?
I spoke less on the builder side and really referred builders to those insurance agents. They could have a more frank conversation. But I love that correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, but some of the fireproof tests and some of these tests that we've known are advantages of growing and of building with hemp, they're now getting like certifications and, we're getting proof in the pudding or quantitative analysis that are backing up the claims that these homes are fireproof, mold proof, bug proof, etc. So I think those are only going to continue to help insurance companies feel good about this, help builders feel better about moving into the space. But yeah, in terms of romanticizing, we tell people, come visit your farmer, come visit us. I can take you to the field and you can look at the dirt that actually was where your home was produced. And those are things that we really enjoy doing because if someone is willing to do that, they truly do care about where their product is coming from. And I'll be honest, being a farmer is hard. Not everybody, not for everybody. So if you can build a hemp home and then just go see where your product is grown, highly recommend, significantly cheaper as well.
And having been a part of the open house and the tours that you provide and conduct on a routine basis, I can attest that it's like not only going to the farmer's market for what you're going to build your house with, that's like going to the farmer's market, having dinner with the farmer at their farm and going out into the pasture and they'll let take your picture by the tractor, dig up some soil, smell it, taste it, do whatever. It is the whole for people who really want to have that romance, but aren't going to plan it themselves. They don't need to. The romantic element is there. And one of the reasons that the romantic element is there is because you're covering the technical element. And so the two have to be in the same conversation, and then them together really makes it come to fruition. And so, have you had any folks that have come out and done that, taken the tour, and then gone and built the house?
Yeah, we've had, we also see it, and this is a little bit off topic, but we also see it in the animal building or the animal bedding side. These people spend millions of dollars on these horses, and they want to know that their horse is getting quality product that is going to sleep on and live in within the stall, etc. A market that we did not realize was so passionate was the poultry market. And so, yes, we've had people come out, view our product. You want to know that their product is being sustainably made as well. So they want to know about our farming operations. They want to know about our farmers and how they operate their businesses, and so, or how they, grow their crop. And so that's been a very unique conversation that we've had on educating people on farming practices, which is we do a big chunk of that on our social media. because there's so much misinformation out there on what is good or bad that farmers are doing, but really it's just a miscommunication and a lack of connection between consumers and producers. And so we are unique in that aspect that we can kind of connect that and build that bridge to give people comfort that their product that they're putting with their loved ones or their fur family or whatever, sustainably made.
Yeah, and then the one word that comes around quite a bit is passion. And there are few other building materials, if any, that I've ever seen that stir people's passion. And then, so there are people that are passionate about a lot of different things, but what insulation is in their walls, roof, and floor, that's usually not on the list of things you're passionate about. And it is rather unique. And so on the design professional side, you're going to need to know what people are passionate about and why, one for your own marketing and recruiting of your clientele, but also just like Melissa does with education, you had better be able to educate and speak intelligently about that passion to where you don't misinform, but you also you stir and feed the passion and nurture it to the logic and the passion that's in the romance. The logic and the romance are all along there, and then that's where the engineers come in, the planning of the builder comes in, and we've got some other good podcasts that are collaborating on those inputs. Anything else that you'd like to take the conversation in direction, whether where you see it going, some of the challenges that we can come together and collaborate and help overcome in the industry? What's on the horizon for you, and what are you like talking about on a daily basis on this topic?
I guess I just want to bring to light too, we spoke about romanticizing and people understanding where their products are coming from, but we're also seeing a big push in the health space. Consumers are wanting healthier products, whether it's the bioplastic, whether it's the clothing that they're putting on their body, the shampoos, the conditioners, the dish soaps, etc. They want to know that they're moving away from more toxic materials. And so if you get someone that doesn't really care where their product is coming from, but they just want to know that it's a healthier product that they're putting in their home, hemp is also a great option and an educational resource in terms of educating your client that this is a better option if that is what they want to do. So that's something that's also really important, I think, to discuss. In terms of the future, we continue to collaborate with other processors throughout the Midwest. We continue to grow more acres to ensure that there's more product available on the marketplace. I really love our farmers. I love working with farmers. I love building this industry from start to finish. And so it's been very rewarding for us to help other processors meet their agronomic demands and be more successful in terms of the volume of product that they can push out through our process, through a processing facility or the processing facilities together. So.
I know you do a lot of educational support to the farmers in your network. Can out of network farmers come and learn and collaborate and ask questions within the educational support that you offer to the farm community?
Oh, absolutely. So we help processors all over the world. We help farmers all over the world. I'm not exaggerating, all over the world. Obviously, our expertise is the Midwest and the United States. We have quite a bit more connections, and I just have more agronomic background there. But no, we have a growers group up in North Dakota for a different processing facility. We work with farmers legitimately from all over the world, and it's an amazing conversation to have because at the end of the day, point A and point B are the same. How we get there is very different depending on the equipment, the land, just the capabilities of that operation. It's also very unique too. Are you certified organic? Are you a conventional farmer? Like, are you incorporating no-till? There's so many ways to get from point A to point B. And so it's been a very an exciting opportunity to help you guys. And it's something that we're super passionate about. It's most of these farms are family farms. 98% of the farms in the United States are family farms. And so I take that very personal. We are helping get this business to the next generation so that there is land and an operation to pass on to their children when they come back to the farm.
Well said. I'll give amen to that. And then the health and wellness for anybody researching is, my background is real estate, and I have seen a ton of emphasis in the health and wellness side of the built space on the agritourism, the tourism, the ecotourism, the health and wellness tourism, where there's a lot of biohacking and health and wellness and stuff. And a lot of people are doing what I did, and that's get old, and that hurts. When it's cold in the morning, it's different, and we just want to learn how life to not hurt and be healthy. And I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of the other industry participants, whether it be on the farmer grower side, or on the totally unrelated industrial application, be it plastics or textiles, I think they're going to find these installments and get to know segments of the industry and segments of the industry suppliers so that they can translate those to their industry, because everything that we've talked about, quality control, beginning with the end in mind, all the way back to the genetics, that's going to be relevant to whether it's going into textile or any other application. And textiles is a beautiful example because you can take hemp, the fiber, and you can use very sustainable practices and make a nice hemp textile that is durable and lovely and soft and everything like that. Or you can take hemp fiber and do some of the nastiest environmental stewardship practices and make a fabric. And it's one of those things that where consumers need to be educated, industrial practitioners need to be educated, and everybody needs to know what's going on along the way. Are there any other points of knowledge that you've seen people have that aha light bulb whenever they're learning about this, whether they're touring the field or they're at a workshop and get their hands in? What are some of the aha moments that you've seen people have?
The biggest aha moment for me is being able to delineate the difference between industrial hemp for fiber production and the more common industrial hemp known CBD. Okay. And if you've gotten this far in the podcast, you probably already know the difference. But a great analogy I like to use, and you're more than welcome to take this and use it to educate any of your clients, is you walk into the grocery store and you're looking at the vegetable section, and you've got jalapeno peppers and you've got bell peppers. While those are both peppers or capsicum, they're two very different types of peppers. And so when you get into cannabis, you've got your industrial hemp and you've got marijuana, which is divided by 0.3%, and that's what categorizes them. They're both considered cannabis, but two very different types of cannabis. When you get into the bell peppers of industrial hemp, you've got different colors of bell peppers, just like you've got orange, yellow, green bell peppers. You've got different areas of industrial hemp. So you've got CBD, the cannabinoids, you've got grain, and you've got fiber. It is very important at a farmer level that they and what type they're growing for, what variety they're putting in the ground, because while those are also three colors of bell peppers, the opportunity for uses of that hemp is very particular to the color of bell pepper that they are. So I think a lot of people don't realize that. Hopefully that's a good analogy to help you visualize how this is grown and the different applications for industrial hemp. But there are very, very different types of industrial hemp.
Yeah, I was joking with people. The word of the year, bifurcation, and
Oh, that's a good
separating
one.
the industry into those, all of the flour and the cannabinoids. And over here's all the fiber grain. And then
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that design professionals, and especially the architects and the engineers, are going to be specifying this is that, yeah, the stems and stalks of the cannabinoid production, can they be used for a building material? Yes, but it's different having a byproduct versus something that's grown with intent all the way back to the genetic to be that product. And so I'm not saying it can't be done, but it is something to give special pause and caution to if you're the professional that's specifying that. And then you need to know about that in the supply chain side and how that relates to your project and just the physical properties of both. And there are some very good cooks in the kitchen coming up with different products every day. And I don't want to come across as somebody who's anti-cannabinoid and using that in the building material. That's not the case at all. But I do know that the heart of the production side right now, today, where everybody can operate predictably, is in what's grown for that intended use. And then that's something desperately needed.
Yeah, from a more like analytical side, it's the cellulose content. The cellulose content of the cannabinoid herd is different than the cellulose content of the fiber herd. And that cellulose content is what makes your house breathable. That's what helps regulate that humidity. That's what helps with your binding agents and things like that. And so while you might not be able to visually see those differences, there are differences.
Yeah, and if you ran some stalks through your machine, I imagine that would be a very bad day. So, but
It would be
what
a
are some of the
challenging
other
day, that's for sure.
yeah, what are some of the other key takeaways that you've seen? I really enjoy how you brought families out to your open house. This isn't just a cold factory tour. There were moms, dads, grandparents, little kids, all out there. What are some of the other takeaways that you've heard people share with you about their experiences?
That's such a big question. Yeah, we are not cold and industrial. We are a family farm at our heart. We operate with family farm. Ideals, a handshake means everything to us. That's as good as a written contract. It's the way we've been. It's the best way to. I think what has been very unique throughout this process for us is we really see ourselves as kind of in the center. You've got your conventional farmers and they're in their overalls, their blue jeans, they're out grinding on their tractor every day and doing the work. And you got, we call them hempsters, but you've got the man buns, you've got the flip flop farmers, they're more focused on hemp and the 50,000 uses or et cetera. What we've noticed at events when we bring these people together is while they may look very different and have very different backgrounds, ultimately their goals are the same. Producing a high quality product that is going to get sold to the processing facility. They want soil health, they want sustainable practices, and it doesn't matter where they're at on that spectrum. We really truly do have the same goals in mind, to provide safe and to consumers. And so that is something that really drives me and warms my heart, that it really, there's not that much. Sometimes the world can seem very decisive or divisive, but it's not as far as we think.
Yeah, in a world that's struggling with being divided on so many different topics, that's one of the things that I truly enjoy. Probably the thing I enjoy the most is that it's very unifying. And then one concept or attribute is not adversarial with the other. And we can find that commonality and that unity in that. And so that's very well said. Gene, do you have any other add-in questions? We're kind of approaching an hour. I imagine there's a couple of other topics that we could throw in here that would add to it. This has been fantastic. And then I can't wait to get this out there. People start knowing about this and shine a light on you guys. Gene, do you have anything else?
Yeah, I did. You mentioned 12,000 acres, dear, and that seems like a significant increase considering, 2023 there were 27,000 acres planted in the whole US. So, question for you, two questions. One is, how hard is it regulatory wise relatively for farmers to plant in Kansas? Because these policies go state by state, and depending on your hemp program, there are various things. Nobody has to be fingerprinted to grow specialty potatoes, right? So we we really want to figure out what the best policies are. And secondly, what is what are they, 5 years down the line? Now, I know that there was just a real disruption in soybeans in the US, and that's one of the big row crops. Has anyone talked about that and looking for, I mean, some people see that as a way for him to kind of get in the door. If you're not growing soybeans, if you're not getting the contracts to sell those at next year, what are your options? So what are your thoughts going forward? Like, since you know the farmers already, what are their thoughts going forward?
Sure. So in terms of licensing, it is state by state. So for Kansas, we are under the USDA. And so we just fill out a very basic application. They want to know where our fields are located. And then we have to submit for a background check. If you are a gun owner or, if you want to be a babysitter, you've got to get a background check. So you just go to your local post office or your local sheriff's department and you get fingerprinted and you send that off. In terms of costs, it's $50 for a 3-year license, and it's going to cost you $49 for the background check. So really very minimal costs when you look at the overall operation costs of some of these farmers that we're working with. In terms of looking forward, yes, you are correct. There is a lot of trade disruptions right now with the tariffs and things like that. That is the joys of being diversified. We also grow corn, soy, milo, wheat on our farm. And so when one is strong and we're lacking in another area, that's the whole point of diversification. But yes, what's that quote? Basically, when finally the pain of staying the same forces you to change, that's really where we're at within the agricultural industry right now. To be very black and white, farmers are farming to lose less money. And that's the sad reality, because we don't set our commodity prices and things like that. And the inputs are really monopolized in terms of the number of options that we have in terms of purchasing seed, fertilizer, etc. Organic or synthetic, like it doesn't matter. All farmers are struggling to make each acre break even. And so, yes, they are looking for other options. And right now, hemp is providing a 2 to 3, sometimes 4 times higher ROI or return of investment per acre than the conventional crops that are grown here in Kansas. So I only see that continuing to grow. Another factor for Kansas farmers is we are running out of water. The western side of Kansas is 432 miles long. The western side of the state is very limited in terms of the aquifer that we can pull from. And it's very expensive to drill wells and pull water to water our crops. We are noticing it's just not cost effective to run irrigated land, but we also don't get the rainfall to run profitable operations as well. So can you find a crop that is going to utilize less water than corn or cotton or soybeans, etc.? And so again, farming is a business. What is going to help you be profitable? And again, soil health, longevity. Farmers, I think that farmers are trying to like mine the soil, and obviously we're trying to maximize every acre, but if you ruin the ground that you're operating on, there's no coming back from that. And that's really the only thing that you have in terms of equity and passing down to the next generation. So farmers are very passionate about their ground and keeping it healthy and growing the best crops that we can.
Well said from somebody who knows all about it, from the seed, the soil, the crop, the processing, all the way through to it being in a built environment. Very enjoyable. Any parting thoughts on anything? Things you would like for us to know about?
No, thank you for having me. I mean, you can always find more information on South Bend Industrial Hemp, southbendindustrialhemp.com, Instagram, South Bend Hemp, LinkedIn is Melissa Nelson, Facebook is South Bend Industrial Hemp, and ask questions. There's no silly question, stupid question, because this is such a new industry. We're happy to help.
And what is the dog's name?
Oh, that's Leela.
I'm a journalist, and you always have to know the dog's name.
Yes, that's Leela. She's 13, and she's me since the beginning. So she's pretty much employee of the month every month. And she does the most.
She's behaving like a 13-year-old dog.
I'm pretty high energy. I'm pretty high key. And she balances me out because pretty relaxing.
Nice.
She's wonderful. Awesome. Okay. This has been great. So let's talk about